Oggi noi parleremo del lavoro di Anselm Kiefer. Lo faremo con prestigiosissimi e insigni storici dell'arte, direttori di museo, ma lo faremo pensando ad un progetto, credo davvero speciale e unico, che è nato proprio per una sfida, una sorta di stress test di Palazzo Ducale per cercare di capire se un luogo così simbolico, così importante per la storia della Serenissima, fosse comunque ancora in grado di parlare dell'attualità, del tempo contemporaneo, come ha fatto sempre in passato. È stata una corsa verso un risultato, ma sapevamo però, sia io come direttore di museo che Anselm, che avevamo un'unica possibilità, che non potevamo sbagliare, perché questa era una grande sfida per tutti, per me nel ruolo di direttore, per lui nel ruolo di artista nei confronti di una storia importante del palazzo. Credo che questa sfida noi oggi l'abbiamo vinta, il risultato è sotto gli occhi di tutti, naturalmente ci sono voci favorevoli, voci critiche, questo è normale, ma noi siamo molto soddisfatti di aver creato un'ipotesi, un'opportunità proprio per fermare il pubblico a riflettere sul tempo contemporaneo, dentro un contenitore storico.
I think that it's very interesting for us to think, as we are here in the seat of the Serenissima Republic, of the many cycles of life and of the many cycles of art that this space and indeed the city has been home to. The very notion of cycles, this cyclicality of artistic innovation that ebbs and flows through history, transnationally finding places where to emerge in unexpected ways, of course, requires the attention and care of individuals. And I just want to take a few moments to thank some of the remarkable people that have truly worked hard, that have truly contributed of their time, that have truly made this exhibition, Questi, scritti, Anselm Kiefer at Palazzo Ducale possible. To my right sits one of the great minds of our time, a person who, without him knowing this, inspired me some 35 years ago to take this foray into the field of Kunstgeschichte, Storia dell'arte, art history. Not necessarily a choice that my parents condoned at the time, because they felt that the family should have at least one practical person in it. But that was the way that Lady Luck threw her dice, and it was because of individuals such as Salvatore Setti's, truly one of the great thinkers, minds of our time.
The very title of Kiefer's cycle, currently shown in Venice, therefore conveys, by implication, what I would like to call a logic of inversion in space and time, as well as a staggering fluctuation between preservation and destruction, between memory and oblivion. The very same can be said of Anselm Kiefer's painting in their relation to the large hall in which they are now placed. When entering the Sala dello Scrutinio, we should never forget that for many centuries, doges and patricians, painters and carpenters, architects and librarians used to enter and exit that room, at least once, in order to extinguish a sudden fire. The memory of places and things is made of such indiscernible traces of those who have been there over time, of their ghosts. Palazzo Ducale today is experienced by us as museum space, but it is that pulsating life, those presences now spent, that have made it the heart of Venice. Today, anyone who really wants to manipulate history to their advantage, as we see happening every day, uses the universe of the media, not artworks. Asking a great artist like Anselm Kiefer to create for the Palazzo Ducale a cycle destined to measure itself against the historic memory of the site was a really unusual move. As its root is a question that undoubtedly the public patron and the artists asked themselves, which now we, as the public, must ask ourselves too. What can public art mean today? Must it mirror a political or cultural concern chosen by the patron or agreed upon with the artist? Present itself as a summa of current values or as an inventory of cultural wars of our time? Should it maybe act as a manifesto of universal values or offered as such? In the years we are going through, we have learned to live with the idea of interval, an interval between the before and after of great historical transformation or massive migrations of human beings. And more recently, an interval between the before and after of a pandemic, between the before of European war, whose after we have no idea about. And we are unable to decide whether after dramatic intervals like this, we would like everything to spontaneously revert. This is an illusion to the way it used to be, or whether, on the contrary, we would be willing to take responsibility for radical changes.
The person I now want to thank, you can guess, is Anselm Kiefer. For, of course, in the sky of luminaries, in the presence of these brilliant words, it is his creative force that generates that stillness in the hollow of a wave that calls for us with all our senses, even the sixth one, to pay attention, to look, listen, feel, touch, smell, taste. Anselm, thank you for allowing us the privilege of being in that hollow of the wave for a moment.
We could maybe begin with the beginning, because it seems amazing to talk about this amazing work here and to actually go back how it all started. And I remember that you told me actually, and it's something you mentioned also in a conversation with Pascal Dussapin in relation actually to the Pantheon project, that very often when you do a project, you wake up in the morning and you go to the library and you pick a book. And that's somehow the beginning also of the project here with Faust II. Can you tell us how it all began?
When I was going to Venice to meet Gabriella, I had by accident, these little reclam books, it's small like this. It's for the school, they can use it in school underneath the bank to simulate that you know all of it. And I took this little reclam book, Faust II. And then all of a sudden I thought, this is my beginning in Venice, to do the work in Venice. What struck me most is when the north meets the south in this Faust II. When Faust from the north meets Helena. He had to recreate Helena, There was a king or a Kaiser, an emperor who wanted that he makes appear Helena, what emperors do, they want things like this. So, and he recreated Helena on a virtual way, and he met her, Faust met Helena, and then they do together poems. And he starts, Faust starts, and Helena from the classic Greek Orient finish the poems in the same language, in the same rhythm, It's fantastic, no? In one moment you can see the convergence of the east and the west, And then I thought, this is Venice. And I started to work.
Yeah, because the city, you had several visits. The city was empty and then it was full again. And there's also, photography is another point of departure. And I wanted to ask you about that because we spoke about it in the interview in the catalogue that there were many photographs you actually took in Venice. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I took a lot of photographs. I took photographs from the lagoon, and later I took a lot of photographs from the tourists. So I made some paintings. They are not in the show there because I made more paintings than at the show with the tourists. I was fascinated by these masses of people, and then the painting looks like the Ensor, But what was the question?
Yeah, the photographs you took.
Oh
because
yeah,
obviously
I
there
took
is
a lot of photographs, but then at the end I took the photograph from the Auvergne, you know, because it's interesting. When you see something, you can transport it to another situation, and all what we live from is our memory. So we cannot do anything new if we have no memories, and the memories is the fountain, the source for the new. So I took some photos from the Auvergne, what I took 20 years ago, and this was a lagoon for me. So you can change the photos, and it hasn't to be the lagoon from Venice. It can be any water to pretend it's a lagoon.
You said also in our conversation, and I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit more about that in a way, Emo wrote philosophically, or on a philosophical level, what you, when you were young, have experienced. When you began as an artist, actually, that when you start a painting, the annihilation or destruction of the painting is already there, so that there is a sort of a simultaneity between the existence and the destruction.
I think Andrea Emo wrote his philosophy when I started to paint. And it was the same. But we didn't know each other, you know, we didn't know at all each other. I was really desperate when I started my career of a painter, because I never could do the chef d'oeuvre. I was always desperate because it was never what I wanted to be. It was never das Kunstwerk,
the ultimate work.
the ultimate work. I couldn't do. And then with the time, I became over this, and I thought, oh, when I start the painting, I know already that will be the annihilation of the painting. That will be the destruction of the painting. I knew this already. So, and then 30 years later, I got this book from Emo's philosophy, and I thought he exactly thought what I did. So, and because he says there's not the nothingness and the beings. There's not before nothing, and then there is something. It's always the same, and the beings are the full representation of the nothingness. It's together. It's not chronological. We should not think that we can create the new. We should just make appear our memories. And then there will be some future when we not force it, you know? We should not force it.
When I was at the opening, I was thinking it would be really wonderful if the work would stay here forever. But obviously the exhibition has a limited lifespan, as an exhibition does. What's going to happen with the work afterwards? Will you install a similar room permanently?
But you know, I want to see the Tintoretto after we covered for some months of mine, if it changed.
Yeah. And you don't know yet if it's going to, because there could be a space built or it's not.
Yeah. You know, I'm open for all kind of things. You know, we can put the paintings back in the lagoon, in the water, or we can do a new building or whatever. I do what you want, you know.
I have time.